Hello everyone, hope you're having a good day. I'm Louise from Noelcraft, and wow, hasn't it been such a long time since I was here on YouTube? The reason being we've moved house and it's a big project, it's a big renovation. So yeah, it's taken up quite a lot of our time, and but we're enjoying it, which I think is the main thing. But I thought, what better way to start things off than with a stitch that I recommend to anybody who is a beginner embroiderer. So if you've never picked up a needle and thread before, then honestly start with this stitch. It is a 3D stitch, but don't be put off by that because I promise you will love it, and it is the easiest stitch that you can do. So let's have a look at how to do the woven rose. So to start with, you need an odd number of straight stitches. It doesn't have to be 5, but as long as it's an odd number. And then I like to start from the outer edge and work into the centre when I'm doing these straight stitches. So I'm going to work into the centre, and the reason that I do that is because if I was to come up in the centre now, it could quite easily split that stitch and get all tangled up and just create a big old mess. So I find that by doing it this way, it just makes it a little bit neater. I'm also going to try and keep all of the stitches about the same length and try not to snag them like I've just done that one. If you do snag them, it's not too much of an issue really, because they are all going to be covered up. So just do that last one. And you also want to make sure that these stitches are all sort of evenly spaced as well. So it doesn't matter where particularly, as long as you're really close to the centre. So I've come up there right close to the centre in between two of those stitches. And this is just how easy it is to create this 3D stitch. So you go over one stitch, under the other. Then you go over one stitch, under one. And you do that all the way around. It's always an over one, under one, over one, under one, all the way around. And that's why you need to have an odd number of stitches, because if you had an even number, some of the stitches, the ones that you go under, it would never alternate, so you would see those stitches at the end. Now, something to be aware of, that at this stage it might start to look a little bit funny, especially if you've left a circle in the middle, say for French knots or something like that. It might not look particularly like a circle when you first start. That's completely normal, don't worry about it. Just don't be tempted to pull it too tight, because what will happen is you'll distort these outer stitches and that will show at the end. So if you run out of thread like I have here, this is how you can change your thread during the woven rows. So I've just gone under this one, which means I would go over this one and go under this one. So I'm just going to angle my needle, and instead of weaving it underneath, I'm just going to angle it and bring it through to the back. Now I'm going to tie that off on the back. And I'm going to take my next bit of thread, and seeing as I went underneath this one, I'm going to angle my needle again and come up the other side. So it will look like you have woven your needle underneath, and you won't even be able to tell that you have changed your thread. If you reach the end of some of your stitches, but not all of them, so you can see that this one here is peeking out, this one over here you can still see, and I don't know if you can see it there, but I can just about see that one from where I'm looking. Don't be tempted to just leave it like this, because it can just sort of look messy and it will make the sort of the finished piece not quite as neat as it could be. The best way to solve it though, because you can't keep going sort of over one under one, is to simply do a few straight stitches, but angle your needle so that the edges are hidden. So angle your needle underneath, pull that thread through, and then angle it going back underneath. So it hides the ends of each stitch, basically. What it will also do is it will change it from just sort of a circular shape and make it look like a real rose. It just gives that little bit more of a realistic look. And you can use your finger or a needle if you prefer to just guide where you want that to go and what stitches you want it to hide. And again, just going to guide that stitch in place, and then just one more on the top to cover that little stitch there. And there you go. Oh, hold on, I just noticed I can still see that stitch. So don't be afraid to just sort of keep adding a stitch here, a stitch there until you're happy with it. It's good to have a play around with it. And also, if you're using a heat erasable pen, don't be worried if you can still see some of these marks here. Finally, just tie it off on the back, and then in the centre of the knot, this is what I do. I put my needle in, and it just stops you from pulling the knot too tight and distorting all the stitches on the front.